A voice lost in static. Amelia's last words. In July of 1937, Amelia Earhart, the most celebrated aviatrix of her age, set out to complete the final leg of her round-the-world flight. With navigator Fred Noonan by her side, her silver Lockheed Electra skimmed across the endless blue of the Pacific, heading toward a speck of land called Howland Island. It was supposed to be just another refueling stop before history was made. Instead, it became the stage for one of aviation's darkest mysteries. At first, all was routine. Radio transmissions confirmed her steady progress across the ocean. Yet as hours passed, the calm fractured. Reports describe heavy cloud cover, squalls rolling in, and fuel reserves slipping dangerously low. Operators on Itasca, a Coast Guard vessel stationed to guide her approach, strained their ears to catch every syllable through the growing hiss of static. Amelia's voice, once strong and confident, grew faint, clipped, distorted by the atmosphere itself. Then came the strange moments. Amateur radio operators across the Pacific claimed they intercepted calls that official logs never recorded. Some described hearing coordinates repeated in a trembling voice. Others swore Amelia whispered names, broken phrases that dissolved into eerie silence. A few insisted the words were not English at all, as though a second, alien voice tangled itself within the transmission. Diaries of civilian listeners mentioned the unease that crept into their bones. It was as if someone else was on the line with her, one recalled, answering questions no human could understand. The official record reduced it to a simple phrase: "We must be on you, but cannot see you." Yet what truly passed through those ether-filled waves may never be known. What lingers are fragments, half-words, echoes, ghost-like distortions that seem to outlive the woman herself. For some, Amelia's final flight ended in the sea. For others, her voice never landed at all, but was carried endlessly, trapped inside the static of the airwaves. In the hours that followed Amelia Earhart's last confirmed contact, the Pacific airwaves became a battlefield of voices and shadows. The Coast Guard ship Itasca continued to transmit guiding signals, but the Electra never acknowledged them. Instead, operators heard scattered bursts of sound, sometimes unmistakably Amelia, sometimes something far stranger. Witnesses later described the transmissions as if they were alive. Sharp bursts of static clawed at the ears, rising and falling like waves in a storm. Between them, a voice broke through, calm at first, then frantic. "We must be on you. We are running north and south." The words were logged carefully, but there were also unlogged moments. Operators scribbled in margins about tones not of human origin and syllables that did not match English speech. These notes, long forgotten in dusty archives, read more like ghost stories than technical records. Beyond the military frequencies, amateur radio enthusiasts across the United States claimed they too heard the fragments. A teenage girl in Florida swore she heard Amelia calling for help, her voice fading in and out as though carried on a restless tide. A family in Wyoming recalled gathering around their radio set, frozen as a woman's broken sob echoed through their living room. The further from the Pacific, the stranger the messages seemed. Distorted vowels, unnatural harmonics, words that bent into something otherworldly. Skeptics dismissed these accounts as atmospheric tricks, ionospheric echoes or wishful imagination. Yet those who heard them firsthand described an uncanny dread. They were certain they had brushed against a voice not only desperate but altered, as if another force had taken hold of the airwaves. In the cold hours before dawn, the final confirmed messages ceased. The sea remained silent, and yet, long after, rumors persisted of faint voices, whispers caught in static, drifting like ghosts across the frequencies. For many, it was not just the loss of a pilot, but the birth of a legend. That Amelia Earhart's final words never truly ended, but kept repeating, forever caught between sky and sea.
Strange radio voices.
Official histories of Amelia Earhart's disappearance tend to speak with the cold precision of logbooks, coordinates, timestamps, failed signals. But beneath the surface of those dry reports lies a different archive, one written not in government ink, but in private diaries, hidden notes and whispered recollections. It is here that the story takes its most unsettling turn. Among radio operators stationed across the Pacific, several kept personal journals. In them are entries that never appeared in their duty reports. One Navy operator scribbled, not just her voice, another, lower, beneath it. Male, machine. Can't say, but it repeated after her, like an echo with intent. Another described hearing phrases that shifted mid-sentence, Amelia's confident tone unraveling into a monotone whisper that did not sound entirely human. In Oregon, an amateur enthusiast claimed his logs captured overlapping voices. One distinctly female, the other an unfamiliar cadence, clipped and metallic. He underlined his note 3 times, as though 2 transmitters occupied the same body. Skeptics later chalked it up to interference, atmospheric reflection, or the psychological strain of listening too long. Yet those who wrote these accounts did not describe mere static. They described presence. The most chilling came from a missionary's journal on a small Pacific island. He wrote of villagers gathering around a set, listening to what they called the ghost woman. They claimed the voice was not alone, that a deeper timbre accompanied it, speaking in bursts of syllables that no one understood. The villagers believed it was not a call for rescue, but a warning, though to whom or from what, no one could say. None of these fragments appear in the official record. They exist only in the margins, forgotten pages tucked away in attics, archives, or family trunks. But together, they paint a picture more haunting than the silence of the sea. That in Amelia's final hours, she may not have been the only one transmitting across the void. And if that is true, then the last sounds from her aircraft were not merely words of desperation, but a dialogue, half human, half unknown, echoing through the storm. The world did not let Amelia Earhart's voice fade quietly into history. In the months after her disappearance, governments, scientists, and enthusiasts turned the airwaves into a vast searchlight, scanning endlessly for the faintest echo. Dozens of expeditions were launched, maps scrawled with potential crash sites, theories woven from silence. Yet, among the countless failures and false leads, one thread persisted, the belief that her voice never stopped. Radio operators claimed that for weeks after July 1937, faint transmissions continued. Some were dismissed as hoaxes, others as atmospheric illusions. But scattered logs tell of something stranger. A British ship's records mention hearing a female American voice repeating numbers, then falling into unnatural tones. In Canada, amateur listeners swore they captured words too warped to transcribe, layered with an electronic hum that no contemporary equipment could explain. Each claim, examined in isolation, seemed implausible. Taken together, they built a legend. Years turned into decades, and still the whispers returned. In the late 1940s, an engineer testing new shortwave bands wrote in his journal, "Female voice again, same cadence, but impossible at this distance, almost identical to the Earhart fragments we studied." In the 1960s, a researcher in New Zealand spoke of hearing a phantom broadcast. A woman's voice distorted, repeating the phrase, "We are lost," in endless succession. Skeptics argue these were echoes of imagination, fragments of overlapping signals refracted by the ionosphere. Yet those who truly listened said there was something more. The words were not merely repeated, they were trapped, suspended in a loop, as though the Pacific itself had swallowed them and released them back in broken intervals. For many, this became Amelia's true legacy. Not the crash, not the vanished aircraft, but a voice eternally caught in static. A ghost of progress, of daring, of human ambition, woven into the very fabric of the airwaves. A reminder that even when bodies are lost, sound lingers, and sometimes it refuses to die. For decades, the public was told a simple version of Amelia Earhart's fate. Her fuel ran out, her plane went down, and the ocean swallowed everything. Yet buried beneath this clean narrative are signs of deliberate omission. Diaries, operator logs, and personal testimonies suggest that not all of Amelia's final transmissions were lost. Some were recorded, catalogued, and then quietly locked away. Declassified documents from the late 1940s hint at discrepancies. Official Itasca logs omit certain frequencies even though multiple operators swore they wrote them down. One technician recalled being ordered to strike out a line where Amelia's voice appeared layered with another source. A Coast Guard officer, in a letter to his family, admitted, "We were told never to mention what we heard in those last hours." He gave no details, only the unsettling confession that it was not natural. Civilian collectors too claimed interference. A group of amateur enthusiasts in California formed what they called a listening circle. In 1937, they allegedly captured fragments of Amelia's voice and sent them to the Navy for analysis. According to their descendants, the reels were never returned. Instead, a terse note arrived. "Do not pursue this matter further. Why silence such records?" Some argue it was to prevent panic. An already shaken world on the brink of war could not afford another mystery. Others suggest that what was heard did not fit within the natural order of explanation. If voices overlapped, if strange tones bled through the transmissions, acknowledging them would raise questions no authority could answer. What lingers is absence. Researchers who pressed too far describe vanishing archives, missing reels, even taped boxes mislabeled as weather logs. A voice was caught, perhaps Amelia's, perhaps more, and then deliberately buried. not because it lacked importance, but because it carried too much. To this day, whispers persist that somewhere in locked government basements, Amelia's last transmissions still exist. Reels of magnetic tape where her words, distorted by the Pacific ether, continue to play. Not just a final plea for rescue, but something else. An intrusion, a second presence that officials dared not release to the world. After Amelia Earhart's disappearance, her legend did not remain confined to dusty reports or military archives. Across the scattered islands of the Pacific, whispers began to take root. Stories that grew not from official records, but from the voices people swore they heard in the night. On remote atolls, fishermen spoke of radios that seemed to awaken without power, spitting out broken syllables in a woman's voice. Villagers claimed that during storms, the static of lightning carried words, sometimes English, sometimes something they could not name. In the Marshall Islands, one oral tradition still tells of the sky woman who speaks in thunder. Children were warned not to linger near the sea after dark, for they might hear her voice calling from the waves. Missionaries' journals recorded eerie encounters. A priest stationed in Micronesia in the 1940s wrote of local women gathering by the shore, listening as if for a familiar presence. He described nights when his own radio erupted with overlapping tones. A woman's plea mixed with a lower resonance, like a chant beneath the water. He dared not record it, fearing ridicule, but his diary notes remain. In time, these tales became folklore. Some believed Amelia did not die but was taken by the ocean, by spirits, or by forces unspoken. Others claimed her voice became a warning, a ghostly reminder of human ambition that dared to trespass into the endless Pacific. Even decades later, islanders would tell visiting researchers of hearing the lost aviatrix, her words carried by wind and surf. These legends, passed from one generation to the next, transformed Amelia Earhart from an explorer into something more spectral. She became a presence, a phantom pilot, her voice tangled in both technology and myth. Where official history closed the case, the islands kept it alive, not as a disappearance, but as a haunting.
We are the forgotten. Listen.
In the end, Amelia Earhart's story is not just about a vanished plane or an ocean that keeps its secrets. It is about a voice, a human voice, that refuses to be silenced. Across continents and decades, listeners have claimed the same thing, that within the restless crackle of static, her words remain, fragile yet unbroken. Scientists insist these are illusions, echoes born of the atmosphere, radio waves ricocheting endlessly across the ionosphere. Yet those who have heard it speak differently. They describe a presence, not a trick, a tone too human to dismiss, too insistent to ignore. We are lost, the voice whispers, again and again, like a refrain bound to no time, no place. Some swear it grows clearer in storms, as if thunder itself lends its strength. Archivists who chase the fragments confess to a peculiar dread. Late at night, with headphones pressed to their ears, they hear something just beneath Amelia's voice. A doubling, a second cadence. Not quite English, not quite human. As though the static itself has learned to speak, carrying her words as its own. And so, Amelia Earhart has become more than a pilot who vanished. She has become an echo stitched into the very fabric of the airwaves, an unending broadcast from 1937 to now. Every time a radio hisses with white noise, every time a signal falters into distortion, there is a chance, small, fleeting, that her voice lingers within it, not merely as memory, but as an active haunting. In this way, her legacy is eternal. Not the triumph of flight, nor the tragedy of loss, but the persistence of sound. A last transmission stretched into infinity. A reminder that even when bodies fall and machines break, a voice may still drift through the ether, searching for someone, anyone, who will finally answer.